Hello, and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins, filling in for Tammy Schaefer, your regular on-air producer. Today, we have Jon Haubert with us. He is the founder of the IAV initiative. In just a moment, I'm going to have him explain exactly what that is. But I'm going to take a minute here to talk about some things that we have coming up for the Colorado Business Roundtable. On Thursday, November 16th, from 5 to 7, we are having our legislative reception. We're very excited about that. We have business leaders all over Colorado coming. We'll have state legislators here and also some free drinks and a little bit of food. So come down and schmooze with us. Also, folks out there, please visit cobrt.com and sign up for our newsletter so you can get the most recent events and coverage that we cover with our partners throughout Colorado. So once again, as I said before, we do have Jon Haubert here, founder of the IAV initiative. So Jon, if you don't mind, will you please tell us what IAV stands for?
I'd be happy to, and thank you for having me here today and the opportunity to explain the initiative and what it is we're trying to do. So the IAV initiative, IAV stands for I Already Voted, and this is a new effort that we've started here in Colorado. We just finished our very first test to see how the program would work, to see what the reception was from both voters and campaigns alike. And the concept is relatively simple. Time and time again, voters at election time tend to have one common complaint, and that is excessive advertisements, political advertisements at election time. And typically a lot of the angst is around negative advertising. People just absolutely get sick of the negative advertising, and it really creates a sense of angst amongst voters. And so what we've tried to do here with the IV initiative is create a system where after a voter has already voted, they've cast their ballot, they've turned it in to the clerk or begun the process to send the ballot to the Secretary of State, they can go to our website, which is ialreadyvoted.org, and they can submit their contact information. And the idea is that they're opting in to the IAV initiative and opting out of political messages and campaign materials, so that the mailers, the door knockers, digital advertising that's directed at you and your computer or your phone specifically, because you meet a criteria for targeting for the campaign, and begin that process where after you voted, you identify yourself as no longer interested in receiving that material, and really it's in the campaign's best interest. After a voter's already voted, there's no need to continue to contact them. They can't vote for you again, or at least they certainly shouldn't
They
be.
shouldn't, yes.
But it's in their best interest to not waste time and money on a voter who's already voted. And it's one of those projects that we think just makes a lot of sense. It's a very simple concept. And it's an opportunity to improve communications, campaign communications, between candidates and voters. Try to improve the overall election process and relieve some of that angst that's happening, not just in Colorado, but all over the country.
Absolutely. So one of the questions that I have here about that, so you're obviously getting rid of it after somebody has voted, but how are you going about that, I guess, is more of my question, because sometimes you do need some of those advertisements, right, to know what your candidate stands for. We would all love to be well informed, but not everyone does their research, right? And so a lot of people do get their information from those campaign ads.
Yeah, and rightfully so. In fact, there is a lot of information from all the various candidates. The process that we're trying to build in is after you've made that decision and after you've already casted your vote, you have the option. You can opt in and at least send a signal to the campaigns that you, as an individual, are no longer interested in receiving the material. By all means, if you want to keep receiving campaign ads and mailers and door knockers at dinner time, don't opt into the system and just stay on the general voter contact list. And part of it is realizing how campaigns actually work and the technology involved. Here in Colorado, when you register to vote in the state, that information is collected by the Secretary of State. That's one of his roles, is to administer elections. or currently one of our secretary's roles is administer elections. And so that voter information is available to campaigns. So they have an enormous list of folks to target. And typically, if you're a Republican, you're targeting Republicans, and if you're a Democrat, you're targeting Democrats. That list should get smaller and smaller every single day once ballots are out, right? So if 1,000 people vote on day one, then your list should get shortened by 1,000 people, and so on as we get closer to that election day, because here in Colorado we do receive our ballots by mail, and you can fill it out at home, which is really a great benefit. You can take your time, you can study the issues and the candidates, do your research, fill out your ballot carefully, and then turn it in. And so as those lists, should get shorter and shorter, we should have the option to no longer receive information if we're not interested. So it's kind of about modern technology and communications, but also common sense and campaign budgets. And we have, especially in a smaller tier election, you don't have multi-million-dollar campaigns being run. So your city council elections, and in some cases these are candidates that have never run for office before, and so they don't necessarily have a lot of money. So wherever they can save money is good for their campaign coffers, but also for the voters as well.
So this is sort of a win-win situation, right? You're not wasting money targeting voters that have already targeted, and the people that have already voted aren't getting bombarded anymore.
That's certainly the hope, yeah. That's the idea. There are a couple other added benefits that we see longer term in this project. And again, we just ran our first test in Aurora to see what the reception was. But let's just say a group of voters living in a certain neighborhood all register on our website that they voted. Yet, as the election gets closer and closer, the secretary hasn't received any of those ballots, or the clerk hasn't received any of those ballots. If we can be a red flag for the clerk or the secretary's office to say, wow, there's a whole neighborhood of folks that have said they voted, it's certainly possible they're all lying, or it's possible something happened to those ballots. They got lost, someone didn't pick them up on time, they're still locked in a drop box. Things do happen. If we can help improve that process, then that would certainly be an added bonus as well.
Fantastic. Well, we're going to talk more here with Jon Haubert, founder of the IAV initiative. Stay with us here on Connect and Collaborate. Thank you. Hi, I'm Alex Hopkins, taking over for Tammy Schaefer, your regular on-air producer. And today we have Jon Haubert with us. He is the founder of the IAV initiative, better known as the I Already Voted initiative. I think this is a fascinating trend that you've got going on here. One of the things I think people that you mentioned complain most about are the negative ads politically that run about. And so this is kind of targeting after you've already voted and you're still getting those ads bombarded at you. What can we do about that?
Great question. And so that's really the crux of this concept, is that you have that opportunity to opt in and say, I don't want to receive them anymore. This can be a way for the campaigns to whittle down their process as well. And certainly this can be most valuable to campaigns in those final days. So as we had mentioned earlier, in Colorado, ballots typically get mailed out 3 weeks or so in advance. And let's say you'll receive it a couple days after they go out. And so the most critical time of a campaign is during those 3 weeks when ballots are in voters' hands. And if you can improve that targeting process and who you're communicating with and sharing information of who, in a uniform way, who's already voted, and I'll give you an example. So last year, you might have you had essentially the Trump campaign targeting most Republicans and certainly unaffiliated folks that are not registered with any particular party, but they are registered to vote. And I'm sure you had the Clinton campaign doing the same thing, targeting Democrats and also unaffiliated folks. But down the line, you also have candidates running for Congress, candidates running for State House, State Senate, County Commission. Just because you've told the Trump campaign you've already voted, or you've told the Clinton campaign you've already voted, that doesn't send a signal to the next candidate that's running for office and on down the line. So if we can create a system that's relatively uniform and voters can opt in one place and share that information to every campaign simultaneously, then that can be a very effective way to quickly reduce the ads. And I'd also add this caveat: we certainly can't make every candidate on the campaign trail listen. But we hope that this information is helpful enough to them that they will work it into their campaign plan going forward. 2018 is going to be a very big year in campaigns and elections in Colorado, and whether we like it or not, we are a purple bellwether state. Lots of people look to us to see what we'll decide. Colorado's that's the hub of the Rockies, and so other states look to us, and campaigns are aware of that, and so we do sometimes have the negative consequence of having ballot measures test-driven in Colorado. Some people could say that voters, are just being used for other issues across the country as a litmus test to see where these issues or how they might play out in other states. And so I think probably more than other states, we receive more campaign mail, more door knocks and phone calls and TV and radio and digital ads constantly. So this also becomes an opportunity for us to flip the script. How can Colorado be a leader? How can we develop a system that says, hey, the rest of the world, we want to share this with you too. This is an opportunity to kind of get out in front of a very common complaint that everyone talks about. And so if we can develop that system here, fine-tune it, grow it, we'd love to do that.
No, I think that's fantastic. I have to ask you, though, as you know, we know that advertising a lot of places is, we get worried about things when we register for stuff, right? Especially our privacy. Cybersecurity is huge right now. It's a very, it's coming up as a trend being talked about more and more. So what about privacy with this issue?
Great question, and there's two parts that I'd want to talk about with that. First, we see a growing emphasis or attention on outside entities influencing our election system. There's hardly a day goes by talking about Facebook and Twitter and Russia and congressional hearings, who's influencing our voters, where are these advertisements coming from. It's becoming a bigger and bigger issue, and questions are being asked, and not all of them are being answered, and certainly there you can expect campaigns and media buyers to get new rules and regulations, I would expect, as Congress continues these hearings. And that's probably a good thing.
Yeah. When
we can have more transparency on our campaigns and elections and where the money's coming from, that's generally a good thing. The second issue I wanted to address is privacy. And it's an extremely good question. And when we had our test in Aurora, that was one of the overwhelming responses that we received, which is, what about the privacy? What are you doing with this information? How is it going to be reused? Absolutely fair questions, and I'm really pretty pleased at how many people asked that. So what we've tried to do is capture as little information as we possibly have to about you. It's not in our interest to gather a lot of different data points. We want your first name, your last name, your street address.
So I don't have to give you my weight and height and eye color and...
No, that we're really not interested in that. And furthermore, we're not really interested in who you voted for either. It's really not our concern.
Well, and technically, you don't. It's illegal to ask that, right?
Either way, it's not what we're after.
Right.
And we will ask for an email address because that's part of our confirmation process. So we want you to receive an email back saying, hey, Bree just said I already voted.org and fill out this information and hit yes. Yes, that was me. We don't want to create an environment where someone is tinkering with our system and filling out voters' information saying they've already voted when they haven't. So it's sort of like a fraud alert type detection process that we've built into the IAV initiative, that you will get that email confirming that was indeed you. So we're not looking for that sensitive information. We're not going to ask you for your social security number. We're not going to ask for any kind of credit card or bank account information.
Right.
It's just not a part of this process. We don't want it. We don't want to try to capture it. What we want to do is capture voters' contact information and share it with the campaigns who already have that same information. But really, the most critical part of what we're looking at here is those 3, 4, 5 days between when a voter has cast their ballot and it's actually being received and processed by the clerk's office. So if you vote on a Monday, it could take a few days before it gets registered.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you rather stop the ads coming on that Monday after you voted?
Absolutely.
And the campaigns would rather not wait till Friday to learn that you voted. They'd rather take you off their list Monday night. So when they go knocking on doors Tuesday evening, they already have that clean, updated list. So privacy is incredibly important, and it's something that we hold dear. And the other, I think, an important element of what we're trying to do here is, we realize people don't necessarily want to be first. It's one of those things you hear about this and you go, sounds like a good idea, but I really don't know a whole lot about it.
Let other people do it first. See what their experience is.
They also don't want to be last. And so there's sort of this mad dash to be second. And this test case that we ran in Aurora was really exciting. A lot of key learnings from the program and how we can improve going forward. And so we mentioned a busy 2018 in campaigns and politics in Colorado, and we will be fine-tuning our system and actually preparing to roll it out statewide in 2018 so that we're not just micro-targeting in one area. We're going to make this available to all Coloradans so that they can participate in the process as well.
That's so cool. And I got to say, with the elections that are coming up, one of those is the governor candidacy, right? Gubernatorial candidates. So what we're doing here at Colorado Business Roundtable on the Connect and Collaborate show, on the last weekday of every month, we are having a new gubernatorial candidate on, and it's an hour-long show, right? So we have a sit-down with these candidates for an hour. It's not just a soundbite from them. You're actually getting solid information from each candidate, and I think that will help people, the voters, going forward with that. So you mentioned this survey that you took, and Aurora was one of the places. Do you have any other places in Colorado that you've got information from?
No, we really kept it very focused on Aurora, and we chose Aurora for a couple different reasons. One, it's the third largest city in Colorado, so we had a good sample size. It's geographically well-defined. We know the city limits pretty well. It's not a large, sprawling area like the Front Range. Demographically, it's very diverse as well. We have a lot of different folks, different backgrounds, ethnicities, new to Colorado, living in Aurora. So that gives us an opportunity to sort of broaden the sample size to see what kind of the reaction was. On top of that, we also had about 20 candidates running for 6 seats on the city council. So you had a very interesting kind of a dynamic, aggressive campaign where we anticipated high contact between the city council candidates and voters, really kind of creating that perfect test case for us in Aurora. We wanted to keep the tests isolated and focus on one community, though certainly other communities came up on the table as ones to test in as well. Lots of attention on Douglas County School Board race. Denver as well was looking at bond measures to improve transportation issues. El Paso County down in Colorado Springs was as well. So there's never a dull moment here in Colorado and politics, and certainly the candidates running for governor next year, that will make it even more interesting. And it's hard to believe, but we'll be looking at another presidential election before you know it.
Hopefully sooner. I kid. So we're going to continue this conversation in the next segment. I have some great questions for you. I'm thinking of those. But we do need to take a quick break here on Connect and Collaborate. Stay with us. Tune in at cobrt.com/live to check out our live stream on our YouTube channel. And while we're on the break, go ahead and check out ialreadyvoted.org. We'll be right back. Thank you so much. Stay with us here on Connect and Collaborate. Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. I am Alex Hopkins here today with Jon Haubert, founder of the I Already Voted initiative. So far, we've covered what I Already Voted is. It's, you get those pesky ads directed at you, and you've sent your ballot in 2 weeks ago, and you're just tired of it. So you can go to ialreadyvoted.org, sign up, and notify the candidates that you've already voted. Tell them to get those campaign ads out of your face. And we talked a little bit about the privacy issue with that as well. People are concerned about giving their information, as they should be. Cybersecurity is a very big deal, and it can be a threat. But the IAV has already taken an initiative on their own to make sure that they aren't giving away anybody's information. They aren't asking you for anything that's outrageous, like your social security number or even your phone number. They don't even ask for that. But let's continue this conversation. Jon, tell us more about why this matters and what can we see with IAV?
Yeah, great questions to bring up, and one of the things I wanted to mention as well, because this comes up quite a bit. There is something called the Do Not Call list, and it is a government-run website. It was really developed for telemarketing, so those phone calls we always got at dinner time from who knows who selling us, who knows what. Really, the same kind of angst I think that voters are experiencing when it comes to elections. Certainly with telemarketing, that can happen year-round, all day, every day it can happen. And the Do Not Call list was developed to try to almost accomplish the same thing. It's an opt-in process. You give your information. You more or less send a signal that says, I do not want to be telemarketed anymore. And you need to respect that. The difference is with the Do Not Call list is it does not apply to candidates or campaigns.
Right.
And this falls into sort of an interesting category of free speech and the right of candidates to solicit voters for their vote. But there's a lot of similarities, and I often describe it, if you're a consumer and you have a certain amount of money to spend on products, companies are marketing their products to you. If I go to homedepot.com and I'm researching a hammer, the next website I go to, I'll probably see an advertisement for a hammer. They're trying to get my business, and that's very understandable. A candidate or a campaign really isn't that different. They're trying to get your vote.
Yeah.
And that's why they relentlessly call and email and knock on your door and send digital advertisements, television advertisements, radio advertisements. This is a very important thing. And those are the mechanisms they have at their disposal to try to reach you to get that vote. It's amazing, though, that there isn't a process that voters can opt in and say, thanks, but no thanks, I have voted. Keep it up. Keep up your good work. Don't waste your time on me anymore. Go talk to my neighbor or talk to my friend down the street. Keep your campaign focused where it needs to be focused. And so it's really kind of, I think centered around a few key things. I mean, we believe that this is, about tapping the modern communications technologies, not reducing waste, not sending flyers or mailers. I talked about voting, I think, on the 22nd was when I cast my ballot, and I was receiving campaign mail up until November 6th. If you think about the mail and the production multiplied times not only thousands of voters in a city, but multiplied statewide, think about the campaign mailing waste we could reduce. That's a great benefit as well. But it's also about improving the voting environment. And when we really pester people and run that risk of having them not vote because they're so fed up, that could have real dire consequences for our democracy.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to get bombarded with things. You just want to ignore all of it, right? That's kind of the retaliation people tend to take.
And we see people do that with their dollars when it comes to products. I'm not going to go buy that product anymore. They've done this, that, or the other, or you're not going to get my business. And so it's a real concern that could happen with voters as well. And earlier we touched on this topic of fraud and our election system. And I think that we are arriving at a really important time. Our initial focus is on reducing unnecessary advertisements, but this topic of fraud does keep coming up, and there's a real perception that our election system has some holes in it, and that needs to be studied, and we need to find out what those holes are, if they're really there.
Yeah.
How do we protect them? We certainly hear about Russians and outside nations influencing our systems, and so if we can help serve in that capacity, that would be wonderful. I was thinking of an example where, what if we had 4 million people come to the website? Well, if there's only 3.5 million voters in Colorado, who are these people that are saying that they've already voted when there aren't that many ballots? Anytime we can raise a red flag like that for the appropriate authorities, whether it's the Secretary of State, the Attorney General as well, whose role is to prosecute voter fraud, we would love to help in that capacity as well and sort of serve as a third party. I think checks and balances is something that's ingrained in us in civics class, and it's an important mechanism. Right now, I'm not sure that those checks and balances exist where they could, and so we're trying to engage in that conversation and bring everyone to the table to say, how can you benefit, and then how can you benefit as well? What role can we serve?
So it's a little bit like a mediation there, right? So while your concern is for the voters that have already voted and taking care of lowering that ad push in their face, you also serve a purpose to campaigns to make sure that they're targeting the right people after that. But in the long run, voter fraud, both parties are helped in that sense, right? You're getting that across.
We hope so, and I think that there are lots of secondary benefits of what we're trying to do, and part of that is having that conversation. So bringing, side A and side B to the table to say, what are your problems, or what are you worried about, or what is the piece of information that you wish you had that could improve these capabilities? And as everything evolves, we'll probably identify new problems, or we'll have problems we never even thought of that would occur to us in the future. And if we can help with that, then it's a wonderful added benefit with what we're doing.
So I know this is all Colorado based right now. Are you guys looking forward at a national campaign, or do you know of any other states that are maybe taking this route as well?
Great question. I don't think the concept for a do not call political list or political do not call list, I don't think that's necessarily a new concept. It's been around for a while. I think what's unique and different about what we're trying to do is we're not just here for the campaigns, or we're not just here for the voters, or we're not just here for the state. We're trying to bring everyone to the table to solve multiple problems simultaneously. I think that right now we're going to take our baby steps and learn to crawl before we can walk. We are just in our infancy. It's great to be here in Colorado and have a project like this in your backyard. It would be crazy for me to try it in a different state, since I'm more familiar with Colorado than just about anywhere else. But I do believe it has that potential. I think that we are unique enough in what we're trying to serve, but also there's scalability with something like this. And so we'll start small. We'll reach out to all of Colorado in 2018. And again, analyze the findings. What did we learn? How can we improve and make this better? What are some concerns from other candidates and campaigns in other states? Because each election system is a little bit different. I'd mentioned in Colorado we receive our ballots by mail. We're, I believe, one of 3 states that are all vote by mail states. So the system may need to be refined and tweaked differently in other states to adapt how voters receive their campaign information, how candidates and campaigns message to them. Maybe there's an application that applies to a different state that doesn't apply here. Those are all the learnings we'll find out as we continue to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Jon Haubert. We'll be right back after this message here on Connect and Collaborate. Stay with us at cobrt.com/live. Hopkins, and I'm having a wonderful conversation here with Jon Haubert. He's the founder of the I Already Voted initiative. And if you didn't check it out on break, be sure to check it out after the show at ialreadyvoted.org. So we're talking about this rampage of ads that hits you, right, for candidates across the state, whether it's small or big. You're going to have campaign ads running at you constantly. The annoying part is once you've already voted and you have that ballot in, they keep coming, right? Is there anything we can do to stop that? Jon's got a great answer for that.
Thank you. And I appreciate you sending listeners to our website. I will say that we have turned off the form box since the election is now over. So you cannot register.
Oh, you can't register now. Oh, you should have told me that. Don't go there.
With the election coming and going and ending yesterday, there is no need to hopefully you should not be receiving any more campaign mail now that the election is over.
Yes.
But so the website is strictly informational at this point.
Right.
You cannot sign up and submit your information, though we anticipate turning that back on. We'll have primaries here.
Very soon.
May, June. So
Yeah.
it'll be here before you know it. But the idea that there's this angst around elections has been around for quite a while, and we are trying to solve that problem. The important thing I wanted to mention too, and we were talking about this on break, has to do with the hyper partisan political state that we're in.
Yes.
And I think we were talking about some examples and the different candidates I'd reached out and what was the cross-reference of political parties. I didn't even look because it doesn't really matter to us.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or Green or Libertarian, whatever the party is. We're really party agnostic. It doesn't matter to us who finds value in this information and data. I gave the example of roughly a third, and I'll explain that. About a third of the candidates and campaigns we contacted were incredibly excited. They thought that this could be a very valuable data point in their overall campaign. Unfortunately, we arrived on the scene about mid-October, which was about when ballots were hitting voters' mailboxes. And I'd like to think that if we were earlier in the process, we could have been incorporated in more as a strategic development tool for those campaigns. Now they know that we're out here, and they'll be able to factor that into their campaigns going forward. So as we have the various candidates running for governor, they know that this information can be available to them as they outline their strategy going forward. I'd probably say another third had a lot of questions. They were very unsure, how is this different than other programs? They may have campaign consultants, campaign managers who say, well, we already have a database. We already have our voters in that database and how we're going to contact them, which has nothing to do with what we've built here.
Right. You are for all voters.
That's right, and all candidates, all campaigns. So just like there's Salesforce as a database. There are lots of databases to contact customers. That's not what we are. We're not a database of information for you to buy and use. Yeah. We're a very specific data point at a very specific time in the campaign, a very crucial time, typically those final days. When candidates and campaigns are running around crazy trying to get in front of every voter that they can. And then we did have a third that just was very skeptical. They were very worried how the information could be misused or abused. And I get that. There are skeptics.
Yeah, there are always going to be skeptics anytime a new concept comes up. So yeah, the skeptics, how do you answer their questions? Yeah,
they're always going to be there. I think that the best answer is the proof of concept, to show them that this is what we've done and this is how we do it, to really kind of earn their credibility, to earn their respect, to have credibility that this is an organization focused on a mission. We are a nonprofit. We're nonpartisan. That really is the space we want to live in. We are agnostic when it comes to political party because it's just not in our interest. We want to help anyone who's willing to use the information. And it's an important effort that we are looking to grow.
Yeah.
Certainly there are limitations with being a nonprofit. And we welcome, anyone who is interested in helping the initiative, donations. We will find a way to put anything that comes into good use for the effort going forward. So that's an exciting sort of next step. That's what we'll be doing.
Yeah.
Kind of in the meantime, how do we fine tune? How do we fundraise to make sure that this does continue? and also interviewing the candidates and campaigns to better understand how they can plug the information into their overall operation, and learning from them. As I had mentioned earlier, there's multiple stakeholders at this table, and we want to work with each one in a way that benefits them and solves their problems. And campaigns are certainly at that table as well. They're the ones inundating voters with this information. And if the argument is made that, well, they're just using whatever it is they have at their disposal to the best of their ability, we think that can be done in a better way. And we think that we can bring over some techniques or strategies from other industries or from marketing, consumer, and the traditional side to show campaigns how to be more effective. And the skeptic side, I think, when you're running a campaign, it's so risky to try something new. You have so much riding on the effort and the passion and the hours that are put into a campaign are very emotional. And to sort of roll the dice on something that's new, I get it. I get the skepticism, the wait and see. But I think we also talked about, no one wants to be first and no one wants to be last either. So if you're not tapping this information and using it for your campaign, you may be putting yourself behind the eight ball when it comes to your opponent and how they're using this information in a more effective way. So we shall see.
Yeah, absolutely. So going forward, we know that we have a ton of people running for governor in 2018 here in Colorado. I know that you were looking specifically at a smaller portion, right? You were just doing the local government stuff over this last election that ended yesterday. Going into 2018, what is your game plan for getting ialreadyvoted.org on top of it?
Great question. Yeah. So the local test, part of it was just to see if this thing even works. Are people going to come to the website? Are they going to fill out the information? Once they do, how do we share that with campaigns and advertisers to say, run your normal target minus these people? And then the next day that list would get bigger and bigger and bigger. Run your normal target minus these people. Can you effectively do that? Can you do this in a 24-hour period? Can you do it in shorter? If you're a mailer, do we present that in a spreadsheet so that you have your target list minus these people? And how does that affect your mailing strategy or your phone call strategy or your canvassing strategy, which are the volunteers that knock on doors. So definitely a lot of learning in this first test. And Colorado is great, not only because we're going to have a very busy election for selfish reasons that helps me fine-tune this project, but Colorado is also a leader in so many ways. And so while we are inundated with ads, coming up with that solution that we can make work here in Colorado, I think will get the attention of other states, and we'll tackle that as it comes up. But again, just baby steps. We're going to start with our own backyard, an area that we're most familiar with, and do right by Coloradans and help solve this problem. So that's an exciting thing. And I think that the way technology is evolving so quickly, this is one of those categories that's maybe kind of been left behind. And we talked about that risk. If you're a candidate, you may not want to try something new. But as technology evolves, I think that we're going to be looking at problems completely differently. And this is broader, right? Broader than what we're doing. Everything in our life. So many new advanced technological features that weren't done a couple of years ago, let alone a decade ago. And this is the entering modern campaigning, modern politics, communications, and media, and helping get your point across to a voter in an effective way. It's all wrapped up into that conversation, and we like our prospects and what the future looks like for us.
Well, I am happy for you, Jon, and I hope that this really takes off in 2018 for you. A big election year here, and we'll get some people pushed onto your initiative here. Thank you so much for being on Connect and Collaborate with us, and be sure to check out cobrt.com/radio for more.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.